Flow is not something that we learn about in school. We think that this is the way things are out there in the world, and we get to react to them. Well, instead, when we tune in to that energetic flow and the understanding that it does change. There's ebbs and flows, there's different cycles and rhythms. It's not all just one baseline. So when we prepare ourselves for all of the different levels that go on, we can be flexible and we can be creative. We can understand that energy is really our friend. And when we want to make a shift, we actually want to have more energy flow. We see that in nature. To go from solid ice into water, we need more heat. We need an energy input so that we can create a transition. Well, the same thing with our health. We need some different kinds of energy inputs in order to have our health reflect a higher level of what we want. So for instance, a lot of people find that stress is very detrimental in their life. Well, in reality, stress in and of itself isn't detrimental. It's the way that we access it. Because stress can just move us to the next level if we openly embrace it, if we recognize that it is a friendly opportunity to move ourselves to the next level of who we are. So for us, it's about connecting, having that mindfulness, those moments of awareness, so that we can step back and look at what's happening and ask, how can I have this benefit me? What is the opportunity? What can I create from this situation that will enable my life to have greater health and well-being? And so looking at opportunities is what we really want to focus on. And interacting with sacred geometry, because it is opening up our intuition, supporting us with greater awareness and mindfulness, and helping us actually open up to those energetic shifts, it is an enormous, enormous support for our well-being in all different modes of life.
Stress, as Gail was talking about, is becoming more and more important in what doctors are finding is a major cause or contributor to many different diseases, because it creates inflammation in the body. And so often we know that heart disease can involve the blockage of arteries, but cholesterol doesn't stick unless there's inflammation. So again, inflammation related to stress, and how do we reduce that stress? We talked a little bit about how some of these tools, when you're playing them or working with spinning forms in the background or wearing something, that the energy around you feels more like the energy you would have in a natural forest with water running and so forth. Another thing to understand is that with stress, we're often trying to control things, and that's the reason for the stress. We're trying to get so much done. We're trying to accomplish a great deal, and we're running here and there. And yet, when you are in that place of connection within your center, and that's what happens with meditation, what happens with working with sacred geometry, where you can maintain that meditative state, then you work more in congruence with the larger part of yourself, with that part of yourself that is willing to allow for the right timing, that is willing to trust in the right thing happening, is willing to step out of the way and allow for the right moment to make itself known. And so working with the bigger part of yourself is such an important aspect to understand. And I know for me, working with these tools has helped move me to that place where I trust guidance, where I trust spirit, where I trust the larger picture of what's going on in the world, rather than get caught up in the small things that are creating stress in my life, rather than trying to force the issue, rather than trying to fight, the flow of the river. All these metaphors that tell us there are ways to work with universe and work with your higher self and work with what is supposed to be unfolding, rather than going against it or trying to do more than what you're able to do.
So, what Gregory's referring to is moving out of those patterns to control, to try to dominate something rather than allow for unity. And we're in a very unusual and wonderful place in the history of beings, and that is that we are moving out of the paradigm of separation and control and power over. And so that's a reference not only to what's outside of ourselves in the world, in our governments, our communities, our relationships, and all of those things. It also reflects on how we relate to ourselves, how we have, for instance, a medical paradigm that is designed to create a control situation. If you have something wrong with you, then a medication is going to take care of the symptoms. It may not take care of the root of the problem, but it does numb the symptoms. It does numb the pain. Well, what this paradigm that we're moving into is about, if we're going to create unity, if we're going to create from a place of allowing, then we honor what's there. We learn from it. We increase our awareness. And we bring things into a whole different way of organizing and understanding, a new perspective. And that is, again, a beautiful opportunity with sacred geometry, because it jostles the old ways of thinking. It really it urges us to go to a higher level. When I put my heart companion on in the morning, and we hear this from so many people who are working with our tools, something happens, something shifts. There is a sense of peace. There's a sense of that connection. And then we can ground that. We can move into a day of allowing, so that we hear what's going on. We notice. We're aware of the serendipities. We're aware of the things that may be out of balance more quickly, so that we can respond, not in a way of wanting to control the situation, but in a way of saying, oh, there's an opportunity, there's a doorway. What can I do now that would change the outcome? And that's really, really gratifying to have those opportunities to move into a different way and create new intents, a new vibrational pattern, a new field of opportunity. So many different things will show up.
Intent is such an important aspect within our lives. We talked earlier about how emotions, negative emotions, what they can do is get lodged in different parts of the body. We often call some of the major energy centers in our body chakras, like the energy center for the heart, where we work with love and compassion. And around the throat, there's an energy center where we work with speaking our truth and focus of will. And then around the solar plexus, which is working with power. And when energy, especially around negative emotions, gets blocked in these areas, we need to open it up. Again, working with sacred geometry, focused on those areas, can get the energy to flow. But also, it's important to work with your intent, as Gail was just saying, because intent is that clear, focused energy that allows you to direct the energy that's coming in through these tools. It follows your intent. It follows where you want it to go. And so that's the importance of your interacting with these and why we call them tools. Because like any tool, it's necessary for you to learn the skills of how to work with it so you can direct it, to dissolve the blockages, to work with directing what you want for health and well-being, and to create a space in your field that can do that. And so often what happens along with these negative energies and negative emotions that go through us is it also corrupts our intent, and it puts that focus into negative thoughts that go out to want to hurt or break or get even or do something in the world that eventually, if we put out a negative thought like that, what it's doing is hurting us. It's coming back at us, even though we don't realize it, because it's again blocking off the flow of healing energy, and it's corrupting our intent and taking time away from where we could be focusing on the creation of our next step, on the creation of what we want to have happening in our life.